I didn't think my boss would ask me to marry him on Monday. Not with a contract between us that is legally binding. Not with her eyes fixed on mine like the answer could save her life. "Ethan, I need you to be my husband," she said, and my brain stopped working. My mouth got dry. I could hear my heart beating above the sound of the air conditioning in her corner office. I looked at the pile of papers with my name already typed on them in neat black letters. Then I said, "Do we have to share a bed, too? Since I'm an idiot when I'm under pressure." For a second, her lips moved like they were about to grin, but then her jaw got stiff again. Olivia Carter never seemed scared. She ran Carter Media in downtown Seattle like she had always been in charge of a company. But at that moment, her fingers were white around the pen. "It's a real marriage, Ethan," she replied in a quiet voice. "On paper, in front of other people. But what goes on inside my house is up for discussion." I slumped back in the chair and tried to breathe. She could see the city from her office windows. Gray clouds, cars, and the Space Needle in the distance. Everything seemed regular out there. My life was going crazy within. "Why me?" I asked. "You have a whole building full of people who would do anything to get your attention. Half of them already act like they're married to you." She looked at me like that. The one that made interns pay attention. The one who made me work late for 2 years simply to make her happy. "Because I trust you," she said. "And you need the cash." That part hurt because it was real. My bank account was a mess. My mom's medical expenses had piled up on my little kitchen counter like a mountain of tension. I was just one emergency away from moving back into my dad's extra room in a suburb of Portland that wasn't very nice. "How much money are we talking about?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She pushed another folder across the desk. $150,000. Paid in 3 portions over the course of the year. And a bonus if everything goes well. The number hit me like a punch. I held onto the arm of the chair more tightly. That money could pay off all of my mom's bills. Let her breathe for real. It could get rid of my education loans and credit card debt. It could help me start over. "And what does everything goes smoothly mean?" I asked. She took a deep breath, as if she had been practicing this answer all weekend. "My dad's will has a morals clause. My personal life has to look steady for me to keep controlling shares in the company. Settled. In a relationship. He didn't believe I could pick something permanent." She made air quotes with her fingers, and there was a sour tone in her voice. "If the board thinks I've been in a serious relationship for at least a year, they can't use my single lifestyle against me. That's where you come in. So this is to save your business," I said. "And you want me to be your what? Department of props? Human shield?" Her eyes got softer. "I don't see you as a prop, Ethan. You're smart. You are polite. You don't talk behind people's backs. You get along well with people. And you're the only person in this building that looked at me like a person after my dad died, not as a chance to get a promotion." That day came back to me. The week her dad's photo was in the news all the time. The way she came anyway, in black, with crimson eyes and a high chin. I left her coffee on her desk without a note, even though I couldn't really afford it. I didn't think she even saw it. "Did you remember that?" I asked in a low voice. Olivia turned away, and for the first time since I started working for her, she seemed weak. Not steel. Not great. Just a woman in her early 30s who has too much to deal with. "I remember everything," she said. "Especially the people who were nice when they didn't have to be." There was a long silence between us. My heart was beating loudly in my ears. This was crazy. Marriage that isn't real. A year of acting. Pictures, events, and holidays. And there was always the chance that someone would see through us. I wondered, what if we get caught? Isn't this a kind of fraud? She shook her head. "The marriage will be legal. We'll sign the license and send it to the state. 2 adults getting married is not against the law. Our business is the why. The contract," she pointed to the papers, "only applies to us. It tells you what to expect. Privacy. Boundaries. Boundaries like beds?" I said, trying to be funny, but my voice broke a little. For a split second, her eyes went to my mouth before she turned away. I could feel heat rising up my neck. "Like bedrooms," she remarked. "We can have our own rooms. We can make regulations regarding everything else. Ethan, I'm not asking you to be my lover. I want you to be my husband on paper. My companion in public." She thought about it. "My friend in private. If that's okay." I didn't expect the word friend to get under my skin. For 2 years, I saw her go by my desk in perfectly fitted outfits and heels that were too high. I had seen how she pulled her hair behind her ear when she was stressed, how she stayed late, and how her grin faded as soon as the elevator doors closed. I never allowed myself think about anything other than a crush. She was in charge of me. Not in my league. Not allowed. She was now asking me to marry her. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't pay attention to it. The world beyond that office could wait. What about your family? I asked. People are going to hate me. I'm just a guy who works in accounting. She said firmly, you're not just some guy. And my family already hates me. That's not your issue. It was there again. That flicker of pain in her eyes. It seemed as if she had a whole other tale that she wasn't sharing me. A portion of her life that I had never been able to view. Olivia, what aren't you telling me? I asked in a low voice. Her jaw got tighter. She looked down at the pen she was holding and rolled it between her fingers. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she spoke. She said, I lose the company if the board votes against me. But if I lose the company, I also lose the one thing my dad gave me that really matters. What's that? I asked. I saw terror in her eyes when she looked up. Fear that is real. The house, she said, and the paperwork for guardianship. If I lose them, my sister's daughter will go back to her father. And he is not a good person. The room leaned a little. It wasn't just about the money. Or strength. A kid was involved. A small girl lives in a vast house with too many empty rooms. Her aunt keeps things together by sheer will. Why didn't you start with that? I asked, my voice scratchy. Because I didn't want to trick you, she said. I want you to say yes because it helps you too. Not only because you feel bad for me. I took a deep breath. For a moment, the contract in front of me seemed blurry. A year, 150,000, a marriage that isn't real, a child who could lose her home, a manager who seemed tough but wasn't. I whispered, this is crazy. I know, she said, but it's also real. Ethan, I'm asking for your help, and I'm willing to pay for it. I took the pen. It felt like it weighed more than it should have. I said, 1 year. And we made the rules clear. She let out a little breath, like if she had been holding it for days. 1 year. Rules that are easy to understand. You have my word. I truly looked at her. The suit's strong lines. The dark circles under her eyes. The hope she was attempting to keep hidden. My hand was hovering above the line for my signature. Signing my name would affect my whole existence. My name. My address. What I do at the company. My connection with the woman I had been trying not to fall for 2 years. If I didn't, I would leave that office and go back to my tiny apartment, my overdue payments, and the bad feeling in my stomach every time the hospital called. I put the pen on the paper. Okay, I said. I'll be your husband. The pen scratched over the page, cementing something I didn't entirely get. Olivia was looking at me like I had just rescued her out of deep water when I looked up. Thanks, she said softly. You don't know what this means. She reached out as if she were going to shake my hand. Her fingers, on the other hand, slipped into mine and squeezed. My arm felt heated. For a moment, it felt more like a promise than a commercial contract. That worried me more than anything else. When you sign a marriage contract with your boss, it doesn't feel real. Not right away. I didn't realize it until I went back to my modest office and saw my name on a yellow sticky note. Ethan, come to HR and see me, Jenna said. HR. Of course. It seemed like my legs were going through wet cement as I went down in the elevator. No one knew yet. No one was looking. No one pointed and said, there goes the guy who just agreed to fake marry the CEO. When I stepped in, Jenna from HR smiled at me. Hey, Ethan. Shut the door and sit down. The smell of peppermint and printer ink was always in her workspace. People usually felt better when she spoke softly. It made me feel like I was going to be processed today. She opened a folder with my name on it and a bright pink sticky note that screamed, confidential, in bold letters. So, she continued, you've had a busy morning. I took a deep breath. I guess you heard. Jenna laughed a little, but it was dry. Ethan, we tend to notice when the CEO walks in and says, please make a spousal benefits package for one of our employees. I looked at my hands. Does everyone know? Right now? It's just me and Olivia. And shortly our legal team will have to file the new information with the board. She moved her head to the side. Is this something you want? You can say no, you know. When she talked of her niece, I thought of Olivia's face. That fear that is so tight and private. The way her shoulders slumped when I answered yes. I already signed, I said. Jenna looked at me for a time, then slowly nodded. Okay. After that, we'll handle the rest. You will need to fill out new tax forms, insurance papers, and emergency contact information. You'll also get a raise and a promotion. My head jerked up. A promotion? She said. It will look strange to the public if the CEO's husband is still stuck in a cubicle on the third floor. You'll take on the role of project manager. It matches the story better on paper. People will think you met while you worked together more closely. She stopped. Also, just so you know, Olivia truly stood up for you. Better pay and benefits. She made it very obvious. I felt warmth in my chest. Was she? Yes. Jenna smiled. She said, I'm going to take care of him if he takes a risk for me. My throat got thick when I heard the words. I wasn't used to people taking care of me. For most of my life, I had been the one to fix problems. Okay, I responded gently. What's going to happen next? Well, Jenna replied, turning to another page. In a few days, we'll have a modest private ceremony at the courthouse to make sure everything is legal. Keeps the chatter down. Then, the corporation will make an announcement. Something that looks good. And soon, you'll be living at her house. Most of the time, married couples live together. My stomach sank. There it was. The bit that had been buzzing in my head since I got to the office. Oh my. I told Olivia we could talk about the rules. Limits. Rooms. Jenna lifted her eyebrow. Do you mean, like, if you share a bedroom? I could feel my ears getting hot. Yeah. She laughed, but not in a mean way. Ethan, I'm not your marriage counselor. But I can tell you this. Whatever you two decide, make sure to write it down. Agreements that are clear. This is already a tough situation. Don't make it worse by guessing. She stroked my arm as I was leaving. And hey, just so you know, Olivia isn't careless. There is a reason she chose you. I strolled back to my desk in a stupor. Like my life hadn't suddenly changed, I was getting frequent emails about budgets and schedules in my inbox. I stared at the screen until a message appeared in the corner. Olivia Carter says subject. Tonight my heart skipped a beat. Ethan, we need to discuss about the details. Can you come over to my house at 7? Address is below. Oh, I had only ever driven past her house, which was in a nice area. I looked at it for a long time before I answered. Of course. Ethan said, I'll be there. The remainder of the day was a blur. Meetings, numbers, and charts. Every time the elevator dinged, I thought someone would reach over the cubicle wall and ask, is it true? Are you actually going to marry her? Not a single person did. Not yet. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel by the time I pulled in front of her house that night. The place was big, but not in a way that made you go, wow. A spacious porch with 2 rocking chairs, white siding, and black shutters. There were lovely lights in the windows. It seemed warm. Live there. I rang the doorbell. My heart thudded so hard that I could feel it in my throat. The door opened, and a little whirlwind in pink socks hit my legs. Are you Ethan? A small voice said. I took a step back and peered down. A youngster, maybe 6 or 7, with huge blue eyes and shaggy brown hair looked up at me like I was a puzzle she was trying to figure out. She was holding a plush unicorn by one ear. Yeah, I said. I'm Ethan. And you have to be. She said, Lily, I'm Olivia's niece. Are you the one who is going to marry her? For a moment, my soul fled my body. Lily, we talked about not surprising guests at the door. Olivia's voice emerged from the hallway, hurried and a touch angry. She came back a second later, barefoot and wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater instead of her normal armor-like costumes. Her hair hung down to her shoulders. For some reason, the adjustment hurt me more than the mansion. It's okay, I said immediately. She just asks questions that are clear. Lily looked at me with narrowed eyes. You didn't respond. I looked at Olivia. She shrugged just a little, as if to say, it's up to you. I got down on my knees so I could see Lily at eye level. Yes, I answered softly. I think I am. She looked at me for another second, then smiled, and all doubt was gone. She suddenly hugged me around the neck, and I could smell sweet cereal and crayons on her. Good, she said into my shoulder. Someone needs Aunt Olivia. It hurt in a peculiar, tight way in my chest as I hugged her back. I said, maybe I do. She said struck a chord with me. That was the first time anyone had ever said that to me. I answered, you too. If I screw up, if I say something wrong, if your ex comes with a lawyer and a camera crew, no matter what happens, we will handle it together. Is that right? For a long time, she looked at me. Then she shook her head. Together, we both signed the rules page. It felt weird, like we were penning promises that no one else would read. When I gave her the pen back, my fingers brushed against hers. A little electric charge shot up my arm. For a heartbeat, her eyes looked up at mine, wide and open. For a moment, the whole world shrank to the space between us, to the futures that might happen, which are delicate, dazzling, and scary. Then Lily's voice could be heard in the corridor. Olivia, Aunt, are we going to eat dinner, or are you going to marry folks all night in the kitchen? Olivia's laugh was authentic and sweet, and it made me feel better. She murmured quietly to me, "Come on, stay for dinner. You should know what you're getting into." I smiled back, even though I felt a small, nervous knot in my gut. I had no idea what I was getting into, to be honest. And I had a gut sense that this year would be more than just a game. "Do you, Ethan Walker, promise to love and honor Olivia Carter as your wife?" The bland beige walls of the King County Courthouse echoed the judge's voice. There was a buzzing sound from the fluorescent lights above. It was the most perilous place in the world to say the least romantic words. My throat got dry. For a second, everything was blurry. The logo on the wall, the wooden benches, Jenna from HR, holding a bouquet she had plainly gotten from a store, and Lily bouncing her legs in the first row. After that, I saw Olivia. She was next to me in a modest white dress, not a fancy wedding dress. Half of her hair was pinned back, and a few stray strands framed her face. She seemed soft, not like the CEO in a great suit, not like the woman who scared the board members into not talking. She seemed like she was trying really hard not to be scared right now. Her fingers wrapped around mine tightly. Her hand shook a little. "I do," I heard myself say. The words came out of my mouth and hung over us like a net. "And do you, Olivia Carter, take Ethan Walker to be your husband?" She blinked once, and her eyes met mine. There was something between us that I couldn't put into words. "I do," she said. Her voice didn't shake. After that, it went quickly. Rings, simple bands that Jenna had bought that morning. Repeating some lines. The judge smiled like this was just another work on a Thursday. He added, "You can kiss your bride." I couldn't breathe anymore. We didn't talk about this portion. How could we not have talked about this? Slowly, Olivia turned to face me. I could see the freckles on the bridge of her nose when I got close. Her eyes looked into mine as if they were asking 1,000 questions without saying a word. "This is for them," she said in a whisper that only I could hear. I said, "Yeah, for them." I touched her waist lightly with one hand, leaving her space to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't. She moved closer. Her fingers moved up to my shoulder, perhaps to support herself or me. I wasn't sure. I was going to make it quick. Just a brush of lips. Something nice. Businesslike. As soon as our lips connected, the world went quiet. Her lips were warm and softer than I had thought they would be, which I had not done at all. Not on late evenings at work. Not when she bent over my desk and I could smell her scent. No way. The kiss was meant to be fake. But my heart didn't get the message. It sped up and hit my ribs hard. For one scary second, I forgot about the judge, Jenna, and Lily. The board. I knew I was kissing my boss, who was also my phony wife, and I didn't want to be the first one to pull away. Yes, she did. She took a small step back. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were a little big. "Congratulations," the judge remarked happily, as if he hadn't just seen me lose my mind. "You are now married." Lily jumped at us and almost knocked me over. She yelled, "You're married now. Does that mean you'll always live here?" Olivia laughed, but there was a problem with it. Something like that, bug. Jenna hugged us both and said in a low voice, "You two look so believable. The board will love this." At that moment, her phone rang. She looked at it and winced. Speaking of that, they moved the quarterly dinner up. "Next Friday. You are both expected. It is highly recommended that spouses come." My stomach sank. The board. The folks who could ruin this with just one question. Olivia said, "We'll be there," before I could say anything. Her voice went back to CEO mode. Calm, steady, and unshakable. They wanted a picture of stability. We'll give it to them. We signed a few last papers on the way out. A certificate of marriage. Records copies. All very normal, very dull, and incredibly life-changing. When we stepped out into the gray light of Seattle, I was a different person. Not simply Ethan Walker, a broke accountant. Ethan Walker, husband. "Here," Olivia remarked as she handed me a folded piece of paper on the steps of the courthouse. "Your first payment." You may put it in today. I looked down. It was a check. The amount caused my fingertips go numb. I can't take this yet, I said. Ethan. She moved closer and spoke more softly. Why did you say you needed this? This is what your mom needs. Take it. It's part of the deal. When you brought up my mom, I didn't hesitate at all. Halls in the hospital. Bills with letters in red. Her tired smile when she said she didn't want me to worry. Okay, I answered softly. Thanks. Her eyes got softer. Don't say thank you. You earned it as soon as you said I do. I put the check in the bank that night and paid 3 payments that were past due all at once. My account balance didn't make my stomach turn for the first time in months. But along with relief came remorse. I had just sold a year of my life. My name, my privacy, my heart, piece by piece, if I wasn't careful. I moved into Olivia's residence 2 days later. It was like breaking into a magazine spread. Soft gray furnishings, huge windows, and hardwood floors. A kitchen that appeared like it was made for TV cooking shows. There were also real-life disasters, such a jacket flung over a chair, Lily's backpack on the floor, and a pair of Olivia's heels left by the stairs. She pushed open a door on the 2nd floor and stated, "This is your room." The guest room was bigger than the bedroom in my old apartment. There is a queen bed, a modest blue comforter, a dresser, and a tiny desk beside the window. There's a closet, and the bathroom is behind it. She pointed. Let me know if you need anything else. I put my duffel bag down next to the bed. It's great. Really. We stood at the doorway, feeling embarrassed all of a sudden. So I said, first night as roommates. Her lips turned up. She softly corrected him, saying, first night as husband and wife. That's what everyone else thinks, at least. Okay. When she said, wife, my heart raced. How are you doing? She thought about it. She said, it feels like I'm on a bridge that could fall at any moment. After that, she smiled tightly. And I can also breathe for the first time in months. I understood that all too well. Everything changed at work that week. There was an email that went out to everyone in the company. Congratulations to our new project manager, Ethan Walker, and our CEO, Olivia Carter, on their recent marriage. My email box blew up. Man, is this for real? You married Olivia? Please tell me this is a joke. People looked at each other in the break room. Spoke softly. Someone tried to take a picture. When Olivia came in with a cup of coffee, the noise level fell as if someone had pushed mute. After that, she walked right across the room to me, put her arm around my waist, and kissed my cheek. Hi, sweetie, she said. She spoke in a nonchalant way, but her hand on my back shook a little. Hey, I said, playing along. I put my arm around her shoulders. She fit in there as she had always belonged. She turned to the room and said, thank you for the warm wishes, everyone. I realized the news came as a shock. Sometimes life gives you something good when you least expect it. I wasn't the one she was talking to, but they were still stuck in my chest. I had learned a narrative by Friday. How we fell in love while working late on a large project. How we kept it quiet so that our work lives didn't get mixed up. How she proposed after a long night of pizza and spreadsheets. We practiced it at the kitchen island, trading lines back and forth like we were in a play. You forgot to mention that you spilled coffee on my laptop, she added in a taunting tone. That's an important part of your character development. I didn't forget, I said in protest. I didn't include it to protect my honor. Too late, she said. But her eyes were warm. Olivia came down the stairs in a dark green outfit that made my brain restart on the night of the board dinner. My garment suddenly felt like it was 2 sizes too small. I started to say, you look. But then I stopped. Boss. Fake wife. Lines. You look good. Her smile flashed, as if she had hoped for more, and then it stayed. So do you? She responded in a low voice. You look good, Mr. Walker. She went over names on the way to the restaurant. Richard Collins. Since my father died, he's been trying to get my place on the board. Keep an eye on him. He'll try to find flaws in us. In you. Inside me. He'll dig, she said. Into your history. Your money. Your family. He'll use anything that seems like leverage. Don't let him see you shake. Okay. I responded, my heart racing. No rattling. People looked at us when we stepped into the restaurant, which was fancy and had white tablecloths and too many forks. Olivia's hand slipped into mine. She whispered, we're on stage now. We shook hands, smiled, and said thank you. I told the tale we had practiced 3 times. It sounded almost true by the 4th time. Then Richard Collins got in front of us. Gray hair, a fine suit, and a smile that cuts. "Olivia," he said, "you go quickly." He looked at me for a second. "And this must be the lucky guy." She said, "Richard, this is my husband, Ethan." There was steel under the word husband. "Richard Collins, a longtime board member, is here to see you, Ethan." He shook my hand, but it was too tight. "So, Ethan, a whirlwind relationship that is quite interesting. When did you two first know you were in love?" He asked it like it was a test. He seemed sure I would fail. I could feel Olivia getting tight next to me. It felt like the space got smaller and smaller until Richard's eyes were on my face. I smiled and let the answer come from a place that felt a little too real. I said, "The night her father's picture was all over the news. Everyone else was talking about the price of the stock. She was just standing there by herself in her workplace." I gave her coffee. She didn't even know who I was yet, but I did know hers. That's when it all began for me. Olivia's head quickly moved to look at me. Something rough moved across her face. Richard looked at us, moving his eyes between our faces and our hands. After that, he nodded a little. "How very touching," he said. "Well done." He left, but the look of doubt in his eyes stuck with me all through supper. Olivia was sitting in the automobile outside the house with her hands on the steering wheel, but she wasn't pulling into the garage yet. Finally, she responded, "You didn't tell me that." "Tell you what?" "That it started for you then. That you recall that night." I gulped. I remember a lot of things I never meant to say out loud. There was a dense and fragile silence between us. "Ethan," she added in a low voice, "this is going to be harder to keep under control if you keep saying things like that." My heart raced. What if it is already? Before she could say anything, spotlights shone on us. A car drew up behind us and blocked the driveway. Olivia stiffened. Her knuckles turned white on the wheel. "Oh no," she said softly. "Not tonight." A guy got out of the automobile. I knew who he was from the picture on her mantle that made my stomach turn. Lily's dad. He didn't look like he was here to be pleasant when he walked up to us. Olivia's body stiffened all throughout. "Stay in the car," she ordered, her voice tense. But I had already unbuckled my seatbelt. Not happening. I went outside into the cool night air right when he came up our driveway like he owned it. He looked worse up close than he did in the photo. His clothing was too expensive, his eyes were too bright, and his smile was too piercing. He said, "Olivia, you didn't tell me you were getting married." A friend who saw the company email had to tell me. He looked me up and down, like he was checking out something he didn't order. "And this must be the lucky guy," he said. "Is that your husband? Or is that simply what you call him for the board?" Before I even thought about it, I took a step forward. I said, "I'm Ethan. And yes, I am her husband." He smiled. "Nice. What do you mean, Ethan?" "Walker." He nodded as if he were putting it aside for later. "Walker. Okay. My name is Eric Dawson. I'm the one whose kid you've been playing house with." My jaw tightened. "Lily is not a toy." He said, "That's funny. She sure feels like a bargaining chip these days." "That's enough, Eric," Olivia said sharply. She walked around the car and stood next to me, so close that her shoulder touched my arm. "You shouldn't be here without letting us know. You already know that." He shrugged his shoulders. "Can't a father come by to see his daughter?" She answered, "Not when there's a court order. You missed your appointment by an hour and didn't call. If you come back like this, I'll let the judge deal with it." His eyes lit up. "Do you really think that paper shield will keep you safe forever? What will others think when they find out your marriage is simply a show?" The term stunt hit me like a slap. My heart raced, but I forced myself to keep my voice steady. "Say what you want to say." He moved closer, and his breath smelled bad, like more than just coffee. "I know how she works," he remarked. "Everything is a move. A plan. Ethan, she probably pays you a lot of money, doesn't she? To be the perfect spouse and father. Smile for the camera. Put my child to bed at night." "Eric," Olivia said. "And while you're doing all that," he said, ignoring her, "she's telling the board this fairy tale so they keep her on the throne. You really think none of them will inquire why she chose a nobody from accounting?" My neck got hot, but not because I was ashamed. "I don't care what you think I am," I said, "but I know what I'm not. I'm not the man who scared his daughter so terribly that they had to get a court order." He turned red. I thought he was going to swing for a second. The light on the porch came on. "Olivia." Lily's voice was little and soft. "Who's here?" We all stopped moving. First, Olivia relocated. "Stay inside, Bug," she said. "We'll be there soon." Eric's jaw moved. He gazed at the home and then at us again. He said, "This isn't over. You may hide behind false husbands and lawyers all you want. I'm going to show that this whole thing is a joke. And when I do, I'm taking that young girl home with me." He turned around and walked back to his car. The gravel made a crunching sound under his feet. He backed up and roared away, and a second later, his headlights passed over us again. I saw that my hands were fists. I made them open. Olivia was staring at the car, breathing quickly like if she had just run a race. I got closer. "Hey," I murmured in a hushed voice. "He's just trying to scare you." "It's working," she said in a low voice. Lily stood in the doorway, holding on to her unicorn. She had large eyes. "Is my dad angry?" Olivia put on a soft smile that almost made me die. "He was just leaving, honey." Lily looked through her to me. "You're not leaving, are you?" My voice sounded scratchy. "Yes," I answered. "I'm not leaving." Olivia didn't sleep that night. I could hear her walking back and forth in the hall. The light under her office door was still on at 2 a.m. I stopped pretending to sleep and walked down the hall around 3. I knocked softly and pushed the door open. She was sitting at her desk with papers all over the place and her laptop on. She looked up, her eyes tired and red around the edges. "Can't turn your brain off either?" I asked. She let out a breath and leaned back. "He's going to do something. He never shows up without a plan." I went inside. "Then we'll be ready." She chuckled softly. "You say that like you signed up to be my bodyguard instead of my fake husband." "Maybe I signed up for both." Her eyes became softer. There was only the sound of the computer in the room. "Finally," she replied, "I'm scared, Ethan." The remarks seemed to cost her something. "I can handle the board, the business, and the money. I can't let her go. I can't." "You won't," I said. "You can't say that." "I don't know," I answered. "But I promise you won't be alone in front of him if he tries anything." The wall she had around her flickered. She turned away from me and then back to me. She pointed to the chair across from her and said, "Sit. We need a plan if we're going to fight." We were up all night, not just talking about tactics, but genuinely conversing. About our family, my mother, her father, the stress of having to be the responsible one all the time, the fear of letting down people who needed you. At one point, her feet were beneath her chair and her hair was in her face as she smiled at something I said. It felt less like a war chamber and more like home. Weeks went by. There was finally proof of the rumor Eric threatened to start. Anonymous questions to HR, a whispered comment at the water cooler, and a blog post on a finance site that hinted that Olivia's sudden marriage was strategic. The board held an emergency meeting. We sat next to each other at the long table, under lights that were too bright, facing individuals who could vote to break everything apart. Richard Collins put a folder on the table. He remarked, "We've heard that people are worried this marriage might not be sincere, that it may have been done just to get control of the business." Olivia's jaw tightened. "The board has no business in my personal life." Richard answered easily, "It is when it directly affects shareholder confidence." He looked at me. "Well, Mr. Walker, please tell us again how you two met." I told the tale. The cup of coffee, the evenings that were late, the way we started to talk. But this time, I didn't just stop at the script. And somewhere between the spreadsheets and the sadness, I remarked, I realized she wasn't simply my boss. She was the strongest person I'd ever known. I would have loved her even if she didn't own this business. The room became very, very quiet. Richard's eyes got smaller. "Do you want us to think that this has nothing to do with your pay? With the raise? With the money benefits?" I could feel Olivia getting tight next to me. I reached under the table and found her hand. "I watched my mom work 2 jobs when I was a kid," I added. "I know what it looks like when someone uses money to control someone else. That's not what this is." Did I really need help? Yes. I'm not going to lie. But I have turned down positions that paid more because I liked working here. Because I believed in what Olivia was doing. I held her hand tight. And at some point, I stopped just wanting a paycheck and started wanting this. I looked at her. The life we want to live, even if it started off strange and sideways. One of the senior board members, a woman at the end of the table, tilted her head. "And you, Olivia," she said. "Why him? You may have married a lot of men who are in your social group. Why choose a junior worker?" Olivia's fingers got tighter around mine. "Because I was tired of people only seeing my last name," she added softly. "Men who wanted to be with me more than they wanted to know who I am." She gave me a look. Looked really, Ethan gave me coffee when my dad died and never asked for anything in return. He spoke to me like a person, whereas everyone else was 3 steps away from begging. He makes Lily laugh. He stays up with me even when I'm about to fall asleep. If this was a means to keep things from coming apart, that's fine. But it didn't stay that way. There was a little tremble in her voice. I'm in this. With him. With all of my life. If that's not good enough for this board, then I might not want what you're offering. The last line wasn't planned. I knew it. The board was aware of it. She had just laid everything out on the table. They told us to go out into the hall while they voted. We sat next to each other on a bench and didn't say anything. Her hand was still in mine. I held on. They called us back in after what seemed like an hour, but it probably wasn't. You couldn't read Richard's face. We've looked over the evidence and the testimony, he said. The board has chosen to follow the terms of your father's will as they are. You still have control of the corporation. Finally, my lungs started working again. Olivia let out a sigh that sounded like it came from deep inside her. Richard said, there are conditions. We want to be completely open from now on. No more surprises. We will talk about this again if we find out it was a falsehood. It's not a lie, I said. He looked at us for one more long second, then nodded, as if he didn't quite believe it, but couldn't prove it. Lily fell asleep on my shoulder as we were watching a movie that night, and popcorn got trapped in her hair. Olivia sat on the other end of the couch and looked at us with lovely eyes. I took Lily to bed and then walked back out. Olivia was standing at the window with her arms crossed, looking out at the dark street. I whispered softly, we did it. She didn't look back. For now. I stepped over to the window and got near enough to see our weak reflection. Hey, look. At me. Yes, she did. Her eyes were watery. She muttered, I meant what I said in there. About you. About being in this. My heart raced. I know. This was supposed to be easy, she replied, and a wet laugh came out. A deal. 1 year. Guidelines. And now I don't know where the act ends and we start. I said, maybe they're the same now. That might be okay. There was a thick, full silence around us. She answered, we still have the contract. Only 11 months left. We could just keep doing this. Just act like it's all fake until the end. Sign the papers and leave. Is that what you want? I asked. In the comm chamber, my voice was too loud. She looked at my face like she was scared of what she would find. I don't want to lose the business. I don't want to lose Lily. That's not what I wanted. Her hands shook as she reached up and stroked my chest, directly over my beating heart. She said, I don't want to lose this. You. No matter what we've become. I felt both relief and horror at the same time. Then maybe we should stop making promises to other people, I responded, and start making one for each other. Her lips opened. What kind of promise? I replied, when this year is over, we sit down, no lawyers, no board, no money, and we really choose each other. Or we don't. But what if we already know the answer? She moved closer, so close that I could feel her breath on my lips. She muttered, I think I already know. Then she gave me a kiss. It wasn't like the courthouse where we were working. It wasn't a brief chat in the break room about office gossip. It was slow, methodical, and deep, as if she was finally letting herself fall instead of trying to battle gravity. I pulled her closer by sliding my hands to her waist. Her fingers curled around my shirt. Everything came apart. The property, the business, the contracts. We were both breathing hard when we eventually broke apart, our foreheads touching. So, I murmured softly, 2 bedrooms, huh? She laughed, and the sound was low and sincere. She reminded me that we wrote, unless we both agree otherwise. My chest felt heavy. Do we? She nodded, and her eyes sparkled. Yeah, she said. We do. That night, we didn't have to rework the contract. We didn't need any new rules. We stood in the living room of the house, she almost lost, hanging on to one another like we finally knew what we had agreed to when we signed our names. It wasn't just about winning a fight or rescuing a business. The barriers between pretend and real life had blurred for good at some point between the first I do and this moment. And for the first time, I was glad I asked that dumb question the day it all began. Do we have to sleep in the same bed? Because now, the solution had nothing to do with contracts or looks. Now it was easy. We wanted to.
If this story stayed with your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends.